I'm here to confront you because we need help from the media, and they're hurting us.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the 10 best lessons Jon Stewart ever taught America. Rants and takedowns included, if they educated people on issues.
And by the way, that's your job anyway. We can't fund these programs, you can.
Number 10, Deflating Trans Panic, the problem with Jon Stewart.
What is the harm of waiting until they're the age of majority? What are the downsides of not giving gender-affirming care or any of those drug therapies? What would be the harm in waiting?
In the season 2 premiere of The Problem with Jon Stewart, Jon takes on the public debate over gender identity. The entire episode is dedicated to examining the right-wing moral panic over trans people and the gender binary. He engages a panel of experts to break down in granular detail how gender-affirming care does and does not work. The evangelical right spreads a great deal of misinformation about trans people, so Stewart uses the episode to lay those bad faith arguments bare.
Intervening with gender-affirming care, which may be just being respectful, or as they get older, some of the other things, you've seen that have a reduction in depression.
As part of that effort, he interviews the Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge, who has supported a raft of anti-trans actions and laws. His probing questions belie the factless arguments justifying those laws.
These are the established.
Well, I don't know that's not true. I don't know that.
Then why would you pass a law then if you don't know that that's true?
Number 9, the Iranian Election and the Green Revolution, The Daily Show.
Iran! With a presidential vote scheduled tomorrow, the streets and arenas of Tehran have been packed with supporters of the two main candidates.
Americans have garnered an infamous reputation for being ignorant of world events. In June 2009, Jon Stewart and his faux news team decided to remedy that. Much of their coverage that month was dedicated to the presidential election in Iran. One of America's geopolitical foes, Jon and his on-the-ground correspondent Jason Jones, set out to disabuse Americans of their prejudices.
I asked him the question on every Westerner's mind. Why was his country so terrifying?
In one word, misunderstanding. The two sides, they don't understand each other.
They investigated in depth both the election and everyday lives of Iranians. They covered the politics leading up to the election as well as the Green Revolution protests afterwards. Knowing that large swaths of the public received their news from The Daily Show, Jon used his platform to educate America on an important world event they would otherwise have not learned about at all.
Whichever way Friday's vote goes, the evil, despotic, apocalyptic death cult we know as Iran appears to have one of the more vibrant democracies in the Middle East.
Number 8, Jim Cramer, CNBC and the 2008 crash, The Daily Show.
Wow. If I'd only followed CNBC's advice, I'd have $1 million today.
In the wake of the 2008 recession, the American people demanded both help and answers. Jon Stewart met the moment, devoting multiple segments to an under-examined aspect of the crash, CNBC. Jon spent multiple episodes examining the financial network's coverage and advice. Their financial analysts were often flat-out wrong on the facts, even as they promoted risky trading behavior.
They didn't catch any of this. And here they are blaming people who don't have the financial expertise.
They treated the markets like a sport, encouraging everyday people to invest. When the economy crashed, these same analysts were bullish on bailouts for Wall Street, while slamming bailouts for Main Street as handouts to the undeserving. Stewart flashed a bright light on the absolute hypocrisy of this position, bashing whiny traders. It culminated with a brutal takedown interview with CNBC star Jim Cramer.
But I don't think anyone should be spared in this environment.
So then, if I may, why were you mad at us?
No.
Number 7, explaining why Guantanamo Bay is a moral stain, The Daily Show.
Hey, Gitmo, thanks for joining us. The Supreme Court upholding your right to habeas corpus. You got to be happy with that decision.
Throughout his first run as host of The Daily Show, Jon often brought up the extrajudicial prison Guantanamo Bay. He covered its initial use under George W. Bush, as well as Obama's failed promise to close the prison. Stewart didn't pull any punches, spending multiple segments over many years examining the institutional hurdles to closing the base. In his view, America sacrificed too many civil liberties in the war on terror. an American gulag was built, replete with, quote, enhanced interrogation and permanent detention.
Oh, I wonder if they got Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, where inmates are kept in a creepy ocean-bound prison in a state of limbo until they eventually go in. Oh, okay, all right, I guess they've probably seen that one.
He was honest, also acknowledging that some of these prisoners were, in fact, terrorists. Freeing them would be incredibly dangerous. Ultimately, Stewart sticks to his guns. In his estimation, making America less free doesn't necessarily make us more safe.
And we're keeping these prisoners in Cuba to keep Americans safe, because there's no way anybody could ever get to America from Cuba.
Number 6, examining Israel and Palestine debate in American politics. The Daily Show.
Anyway, what I was saying was last Thursday saw the start of a new ground offensive launched by Israel.
Jon's first viral foray into the Israel-Palestine conflict came in 2014 during an Israeli incursion into Gaza. As a player in the leftist political space and a Jewish American, Stewart attempted to navigate the incredibly uncomfortable conversations on the subject. For Jon, knee-jerk American reactions tend to be too oversimplified. For decades, politicians of both parties were essentially, quote-unquote, not allowed to question Israel's policies vis-a-vis Palestine.
Look, obviously there are many strong opinions on this issue, but just merely mentioning Israel or questioning in any way the effectiveness or humanity of Israel's policies is not the same thing as being pro-Hamas.
Conversely, the voices on the left tend to be monomaniacal, refusing to engage in anything other than personal attacks on people who disagree. A decade later, during another Israeli invasion, Jon tackled the topic amidst the cacophony of hot takes. He did a deep dive into all the involved parties and potential solutions.
So Israel, the United States, the United Nations, the Arab nations, no one seems to be incentivized to stop the suffering of the innocent people in this region.
Number 5, putting the lie into election integrity. The problem with Jon Stewart.
So we've now moved from every vote is sacred to democracy is in the eye of the beholder. Trump got thumped, so why does he think he won?
Donald Trump and the GOP have sounded the alarm bells about election integrity for years. They have claimed, without evidence, that the 2020 presidential election was fraudulent. In Republican-controlled states, election integrity has been a casus belli for draconian voting restrictions. Worse, it's led to intimidation and threats of violence against election workers.
1 in 6 election workers report being threatened or harassed. 1 in 3 have left their posts because of safety concerns.
One lie, the big lie, has had real-world negative impact on people across America. Jon caps his examination with a viral interview with Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich. The entire episode and interview highlight the circular logic at work. Politicians pushing this line mislead about voter fraud, which in turn gins up their base who now think it's a massive problem.
The election in Arizona was well run, not fraudulent, and not stolen from Donald Trump, according to even your investigation.
I have never said.
Why is it so hard to just say yes to that?
Number 4, eviscerating pro-gun talking points. The problem with Jon Stewart.
This year, I think 50,000 Americans died in gun-related violence. Would you agree that is a problem? Oh, we're done. That's it.
Jon Stewart has never shied away from the gun debate. During his first run on The Daily Show, he covered one mass shooting after another, slamming lawmakers for their inaction. He tackled the issue again on The Problem with Jon Stewart. In yet another viral interview, Jon debated gun-supporting state senator Nathan Dahm from Oklahoma. He proved once again his uncanny ability to strip someone's beliefs to the bone, putting all of the flaws and hypocrisy on full display. Stewart argued that an unregulated market for guns causes mass death.
You're saying more guns makes us more safe.
Yes.
So when we got 400 million guns in the country, we had an increase and gun deaths went up. So when exactly does this curve hit?
He listened to Senator Dahm's talking points, arguments used by lobbyists to prevent gun laws for decades. He replied with facts and figures to explain to his viewers just how solvable this problem could be.
If we had an ATF that wasn't defunded, we would be able to enforce gun laws more effectively, and we would be able to solve gun crimes more effectively. You're against all of that.
Number 3. Jon slams bad faith opposition to the ACA. The Daily Show.
What the bill was saying is, if you have a consultation
Right.
Every 5 years, we will pay for it.
Right. And that would be a benefit.
In 2009, opponents of the Affordable Care Act were adamant in their opposition. For months leading up to its passage and for years afterwards, they used exaggerations and outright lies to stoke public fear. One frequent false claim was that government death panels would be established to decide people's fates. One such critic, former New York Lieutenant Governor Betsy McCaughey, went to The Daily Show to voice her concerns. The pair clashed on the bill's fine-tooth details that were too often lost in the noise of politics. He poked holes in many of her arguments, highlighting the truth.
It seems like this
believe in
bill,
advanced consultations.
It seems like this bill is allowing people more control over their lives, and that your reading of it is hyperbolic and in some cases
in fact,
dangerous.
After the bill's passage, he would keep lawmakers honest by bringing on the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary and even President Obama to illustrate problems with the ACA's implementation.
When we passed health care, there was a lot of complaints about, a single-payer plan would be better, or we need a public option, or their whole range of possibilities. And a lot of those suggestions I agreed with.
Number 2, Crossfire as a microcosm for what's wrong with political media. Crossfire.
I have privately amongst my friends and also in occasional newspapers and television shows mentioned this show as being bad.
Jon Stewart's appearance on Crossfire in 2004 was a pivotal moment in both media criticism and American political discourse. As a guest, Stewart slammed the show's hosts for their partisan bickering. He argued that the political media, by turning politics into gladiatorial combat, had done a disservice to the world. His critiques resonated with many viewers who were exhausted by sensationalized news coverage. His powerful words ultimately led to the show's cancellation. Stewart advocated for responsible journalism and cemented his role as a sort of watchdog for the media.
I didn't realize that, and maybe this explains quite a bit,
the opportunity
is that the news organizations look to Comedy Central for their cues on integrity. So,
right.
It's a hobby horse he has ridden again and again in the last 2 decades. Stewart's appearance on Crossfire became a teaching moment about media ethics, bias, and the role of journalists in holding politicians accountable.
You're doing theater when you should be doing debate, which would be great.
No, it's just
it's not
true.
honest. What you do is not honest. What you do is partisan hackery. And I'll tell you why I know it.
You have John Kerry on your show, and you sniff his throne, and you're accusing us of partisan hackery?
Absolutely.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, breaking down the Zadroga Act, The Daily Show.
You were down there from the moment of the attacks, for the most part. Now you see the Senate is filibustering the bill.
Jon Stewart fans know that he's long been a steadfast advocate for 9/11 first responders. It began with a 2010 episode of The Daily Show, where Stewart pushed for passage of the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. The law was designed to provide funds for health monitoring and aid to all of those who suffered health complications from their response to the September 11th attacks. At the end of 2010, Republican senators were filibustering the bill.
And all that.
And you get penalized for getting sick.
A lot of the things they're saying is, hey man, it's Christmas. And I want you to listen to this. They're saying that they don't have time to get to this.
To combat their spin, Stewart brought on a panel of first responders to explain both why the bill was necessary and to shame lawmakers into passage. Since then, Stewart has led the charge to guarantee its reauthorization, as well as those of similar laws.
And you can end it tomorrow. Why this bill isn't unanimous consent and a standalone issue is beyond my comprehension.
Did Jon Stewart ever help you learn a lot while he made you laugh? Were any of his best lessons left off our list? Let us know in the comments below.
And I'm sorry if I sound angry and undiplomatic, but I'm angry, and you should be too.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.